Hello everyone, this is Witcher the Wizard here with you once again for the Twin Flames, the Twin Within Energy Report for the week of May 26th through June 1st of 2019. Man, this year is going by really quickly. I don't know about you all, but I feel like I just have this feeling like I've done a lot of spring cleaning to kind of get myself ready for an action-packed summer, which I really desperately need this year. My last couple summers have been spent in an energy of just chaos and confusion, trying to figure out where I'm at in my life, where I'm going. A lot of moving parts, a lot of things going out of my life, a lot of new things coming into my life, and not really sure where I'm at, where I'm going. Um, and so that's, like I really feel that this year I need to be incredibly focused on um, moving forward, taking action to move my life forward. Um, and and so hence the spring cleaning. Like I've done a lot of spring cleaning, and and yet I feel like I still there's more to do, and and it really just comes back to that feeling like I need to move forward this summer. Um, I really need to spend the entire summer just focused on taking action to move forward, and that's really difficult to find the energy and the focus to to move forward when you're not really sure where your life is going. It's really easy. It's really easy to be in action and move forward when you know when you have that feeling of certainty, if you know that you're heading in this direction and that this direction really lines up with you both internally as well as if I put my time and energy and resources into this, it's going to produce um, good results for my life. But when you're not sure, like how do you do that? And the tricky part is that when you're not sure of where you're going in life, one of the most important things to do is to put yourself in motion. And when you do that, you'll be on the fast track to getting feedback of what's working and what's not working, what's aligning, what's not aligning. And when you try and just, it is important to sit and be with yourself. And when there's a lot of, when it's, after you've gone through a major tower moment or maybe several major tower moments and you're trying to let go of things, um, it's important to let the dust settle a little bit and let yourself heal. That is important. Um, and I've spent, I think, the last 3 years doing that. And what I've learned from all of that, and in the midst of all of that, I've been trying to put myself in action. And it's been really hard to put myself in action when I just wasn't sure um, what I was doing, where I was going. And sometimes I would put myself in action and find that, this wasn't really in alignment with me. And that's why it was so difficult. Um, and and it took me a long time to figure that out because I was letting the fear of everything get in the way too much. Um, I had my mind set on the course of actions of a certain course, right? A certain course of action, where I really had my mind set on it, and because my mind was so set on going in this direction and seeing and wanting it to work, that as I'm looking back on it, I realize one of the reasons why I had so much fear around taking action was that I think at a certain level, I knew that this wasn't going to work for me. like at a soul level, I knew that this isn't really where I wanted to go. But in my mind, I had this story cooked up of this is gonna, you know, be my salvation. This is what I want to do. And so when you have your soul knowing that this isn't gonna work, and your mind really attached to a story about it needing to work and needing to be successful, that's when you're just instantly going to be put into inaction. And that's probably a really good indicator as to if you're trying to do something and you're just feeling so fearful about it that you find yourself not even being able to take some of the most minuscule steps forward, then more than likely your soul is telling you one thing and your mind is telling you another thing, and they're at odds with each other, and that's why your mind is creating all this fear to prevent the inevitable. And the inevitable is that this, whatever the mind has is attached to is not what you need to be doing, right? Yeah, it took me a long time it took me like 2.5 years to figure that out. But that's okay. Hopefully somebody out there will watch this video and you can save yourself 2.5 years and realize that there's fear. Like, so I was on a kind of a dual. I started two businesses, kind of. I started a real estate business, and that's the one that my mind was all connected to, wanting that to work out. And interestingly enough, at the same time that I was getting my real estate license, I got trained in doing energy work. And I thought it was interesting, but I also just had no intentions of becoming an energy worker, doing Reiki work or anything like that. And yet, 2.5 years later, I'm really kind of putting my being a real estate agent, to bed, because I did it enough. I actually did finally do enough of that work, even though it was just so hard for me to get started in it. And there were just so many internal barriers that I put up against doing that. I did it enough to realize that it's while I could be good at it, it's kind of more the same work that I left when I left my old corporate job. And it's not what I want to do anymore. Like, I don't want to chase clients. I don't want to have like really mean, nasty conversations with contractors who are doing a really shitty job on a client's house. I don't want to be in that energy anymore. I did that in my old job, and I did really well at it. I could go in and have those knockdown, drag out, nasty fights with other businesses and win. But it took like such a heavy toll on me, and I don't want to be in that space anymore. And finally, I finally had to just say, no, this isn't what I want to be. And the problem is that, there's good money in real estate. And what do I know about money and energy work? But so the interesting thing was that even though I was really nervous about doing the energy work, because I just didn't have any kind of framework to know if I was any good at it or not. Once I got over that hurdle, the more I do it, the more I love it. And so, yeah, there was resistance. But it was resistance, it was fear of being vulnerable, which was a completely different fear than the fear of something just not working out. because deep down you know it's not the right direction for you to go. That's a completely different fear. That's a fear of like letting go of the illusion and seeing the truth, versus a fear of just being vulnerable, putting yourself out there and seeing if like, like, am I good at this? Do people like it? Those are two completely different fears. And so, yeah, just how do you know, like, how can you put yourself in action when you don't know the course of, what your soul really wants? And so for the feminine energy today, we actually have the sun in reverse. And that works really well with what we're talking about here. Yeah, when you're not connected to yourself, how do you know? How do you put yourself in action? Because action will tell you, like, it will tell you almost immediately if something's going to work, if it's right for you. It'll help produce results. The best thing you can ever do in life is put yourself in action, and that's why people say fail and fail often. Right? In order to fail, you have to put yourself in action. You have to try something. You have to attempt something. But it's so hard when you're just not sure. When conditions in life are such that you just don't have that clear connection to your soul, and you don't have that vision and that assurance of your direction. But if you put yourself in action, you will get that feedback almost immediately. And if you take that feedback and go into meditation, so everybody says meditation is important, but I don't think a whole lot of people really talk about why it's so important. They say, oh, quiet your mind, quiet the monkey mind. The real reason why quieting your monkey mind is so important is that it puts you in touch with your soul. And I personally view the sun as our soul. And in fact, the word sun and soul are the same, come from the same root word in the Proto-Indo-European language. Right? Sun and soul come from the same root word. And so quieting your mind helps you listen and hear your soul. Listen to and hear your soul. And your soul will give you guidance. And it doesn't come from up here. It comes from your heart and your gut. Will tell you. Directly connected to your soul. And so when you put yourself in action, you will start to get feedback, and you'll start to know the difference between the fear of being vulnerable versus the fear of the illusion of your mind. So your mind has fear that the illusion is going to crumble, and then your heart has just a fear of being vulnerable. Those are two very different kinds of fear. They feel different. And the fear of being vulnerable is, none of those are fears to be, they're not bad. They feel different, and you have them for different reasons. So the fear of being vulnerable is just that, we're all here to be our true self, be our authentic self. And we're afraid that if we are, we'll be rejected. And that fear of rejection goes right back to our survival instinct, where we used to have to be in tribes in order to survive. It was impossible to survive on your own. And tribes were very small. So if you were rejected by the tribe, you couldn't, there was, you were on your own. You were done. Right? It was very kind of rare to go to another tribe and be allowed into the tribe. Right? They were very exclusive, and that's because of trust and all kinds of different things. Because it was so tied to our survival way back in the, Paleolithic days. But that that genetic programming is still there in all of us. And so it's a very, very deep-rooted fear. The fear of the mind is, that's a fear born out of attachment and illusion and story. It's attachment to a story, which is ultimately illusion. Right? The stories that our mind makes up, they're great, they're powerful, but ultimately they're just made up. Right? What your heart is telling you is your soul's true essence. But the stories that your mind makes up to try and explain what's going on in the world are just that. They're just stories. They're just best guess. And they're very important that we do that because it helps us, do things like, don't touch that red glowing metal. It's hot and it will burn you. And that's a story that the mind makes up based on its experiences. And that story is usually accurate and helps protect you. But it's not always true. And a lot of times, as we know, you look back in history, the mind will make up stories about things completely false. And so that's what we do a lot with our lives. We make up stories about our lives that are completely false. But it's also part of a survival instinct, right? It's there to help you not injure yourself as we make our way around this three-dimensional world. But the difference is that your heart will never steer you wrong. Never steer you wrong. And the brain is kind of a learn as it goes kind of thing. So getting connected to our hearts, taking action so that we get that instantaneous feedback from the world. We start to get that feedback will start to come in. And as we get all that feedback and we're trying to make sense of it all, you meditate so that you can start to hear what your soul is telling you versus what your mind is telling you. Eventually, your mind will start to pick up on what the soul is saying. It'll say, oh, wait a minute, that actually fits. You'll start to get a better sense of guidance from your soul as to what is me and what is not me, what is good for me, what works for me, what's not good for me, what does not work for me. And then that's when the mind can start to use the Queen of Swords energy, which is the energy of that internal discernment, right? Where we can just say, yeah, this is me, this is not me. And what's not me, you got to really make a boundary. That's why she's got that sword. Swords define. And a definition is a cutting away of what is not from the what is. And it's not a bad thing. I hate when people say the Queen of Swords is the card of divorce. That's like, I don't know. It seems very patriarchal and sexist to say that. The Queen represents your internal self, and your internal self needs to know its boundaries. What is me? What is not me? It's no divorce. It's definition. And in, a way you are divorcing yourself from things that don't belong to you. But divorces, especially when it's applied to women in our modern culture, is such a negative idea. It's such a negative word. It's a negative idea. But defining yourself, there's nothing negative about that. It's necessary, right? We've only got so much time and attention, and we need to really be razor focused on putting our time and attention into what is us versus what is not us. That's how we lead good lives. That's how we attain happiness, is really putting our time and attention, focusing our time and attention on what our soul wants us to do, what is us, and retract it from what is not us. So cutting that away. Cutting that away. And so that's what I feel like we're at right now, is we're, really moving into summer, full force. And it's time to be in action, right? I mean, the spring cleaning is a big part of, like, it's both, It's like knowing what you want to keep and what you want to get rid of. And then getting rid of it, doing it. I had to do a lot of letting go. My dad died at the end of 2017, and so at the beginning of 2018, February actually, we took a lot of his, got rid of almost everything of his possessions, but we took a lot of it into the house, and my sisters and I collectively we took stuff, and there it sat for a little over a year, and then finally, it was one of those things where I just, I talked to my sisters too, and they just weren't ready to let go of things yet, and yet, this May when we started doing a lot of spring cleaning, it was time, and I didn't really struggle that much letting go of a lot of things. So, there is a grieving process when you have to let go. Sometimes cutting things out of your life is just as simple as saying, "Oh, yeah, that's not me," and there's no attachment to it. It's just really being clear on where you want to put your energy. But sometimes there were things that were previously a part of your life, and you have to let go of that. This woman who suffered the loss of one of her, the lower part of one of her legs in a boating accident, and she had to rehabilitate herself and create a new life for herself. And during that rehabilitation, she dealt with this phantom limb syndrome, where she's got a TED Talk. It's amazing. I wish I knew her name. I can't remember, but she has a TED Talk where she talks about how she could literally feel a piece of string between her two toes that no longer existed. And so dealing with that phantom limb syndrome and struggling to create a new life and struggling to let go of her old life, she came up with this idea of the phantom life syndrome. And if you do a search for a TED Talk that talks about phantom life syndrome, I think you'll find her. Just a really amazing talk. And I thought that was just a brilliant, genius idea, the phantom life syndrome. Which, when you think, when you're young, when we're really young, we're just almost in a constant state of death and rebirth. Death and rebirth. We outgrow old clothes, toys, television shows. We're constantly going, graduating from kindergarten to first grade to second grade. We leave elementary school, we go to junior high to high school. We're just constantly outgrowing games that we used to like to play. And I don't mean video games. I mean like games that children actually get together and play on the playground. And we outgrow them. We're constantly outgrowing things. And we have no problems letting go. It's just so amazing how children have no problems, or very few problems, of letting go of the old things to bring in the new. Because I think that it's so clear to them that they're sort of leveling up. Oh, I'm leveling up. I'm bigger now, so I'm taller. I get to wear new clothes. I get to go to the next higher grade. I'm no longer a grade schooler. I get to be in, junior high. It's a leveling up process, and then somehow when we get out of school and we get a few years under our belt, we lose that. We lose that enthusiasm. We lose that sort of innate knowledge that as we let go of things, we're still growing. We're still moving on. We're still up leveling. And And we get really scared to let things go. I don't know why that happens. I don't. I think maybe because we suddenly are thrust into the world of having to go out and make our own money and provide for ourselves, and we start to get caught up into that scarcity mindset. It's put in our face instantly about how suddenly we need to make money, and sometimes there's not enough money. We don't have enough. We're struggling to pay rent and buy new clothes, and you just ran over something in the road, and you need a new tire, and all this kind of things. And now we've got all these bills to pay, and jobs seem to be paying less and less money, even though as a world economy we're growing and growing and growing. That's not really being shared out evenly to everyone. And so we get into this scarcity mindset, and we're just clutching on to things instead of realizing that 2,000 years ago we probably had fewer than 100 million people on the planet, and now we've got like 7 or 8 billion. Think about it, 7 or 8 billion. That's thousands of times more people. And yet somehow we can still produce enough food. I know that people are starving and not everybody gets enough food, but we actually grow enough food for everybody to always be well fed, even though a lot of people are starving. We actually grow enough food for everyone to be completely well fed. Like 7, 8 billion people on this planet. It's amazing how abundant we are. And yet we're all still caught in this lack mentality. And so but it's super important to let that stuff go. Because as you let it go, you'll actually start to have more abundance. I know it doesn't make any sense. But as you let things go and your energy gets narrowly focused on just what is you will start to create abundance. Because your energy isn't going to be spread out to all these different things that are not you. It will be narrowly focused on you. And that's why minimalism is like, I think, so important for good health. If I could show you my office right now, pan the camera around, you would see that I'm deep in the middle of trying to get out of having too much stuff and let things go. I think that's it for the day. I kind of want to leave it at there. I've talked enough about it, but connecting to our soul, we got to take action. We got to take action, and in taking action, we're going to get that feedback of what's in alignment with us and what isn't, and then we need to cut the things out that are not in alignment with us, and it's hard. It's really hard, because sometimes you really have your mind and sometimes your heart set on things. But the universe never lies. If you put yourself out there and it's not working and you don't get that positive feedback, then let it go. Let it go and look for where you are getting that positive feedback, and put your energy into that, and let everything else go. And especially if things are in your life, junk food. Oh my God, junk food. Or television, all that kind of stuff, where it's just it feels good, but while you're doing it, and then afterwards it feels terrible. That's not for you. If it feels good while you're doing it and afterwards it feels terrible, it's not for you. You don't feel good. Stealing your energy. Let it go. Let it go. You'll start to feel a lot better. I know, as I've been getting rid of everything, I just feel better and better and better. And I just have more clarity, more energy, and more optimism. And it's kind of like one of those things. It's like a snowball that starts out small, and the further you go, the bigger it gets, the more momentum you get. You build that momentum. And that's where I'm going to leave it. So have a great week. Be well, be safe. If you want to get a private reading with me, I do rune readings. I know I use tarot cards for my message, but I actually use rune cards to do my reading. I have like a little, I have a video that talks about what that looks like. It's not predictive. I don't do predictive readings because it's pointless. You all have your own free will to change your life at any moment. Instead, I do the readings where it talks about your energy of where you're at and what you're working on in the moment. That can give you some clarity on where to focus your efforts. And I almost forgot again. I did this like 2 weeks ago. Because I always wait until the end to do this, but I almost forgot our oracle card. So I am turning over the oracle card. I have not seen it yet. And it is coming apart. I have never gotten this oracle card yet. So this is the Enchanted Maps series oracle card by Colette Baron-Reid. Coming apart. And I'm going to read that and see how and if it fits into what we're talking about today. I don't know why. Been forgetting about those. So now is the time to take separate paths. In the upright, the coming apart card is a sign to put an end to what is no longer working for you. Oh, holy moly. Has a commitment been broken? Perhaps you need to break a promise or change course because you took on more than you could handle. This is a perfect time to reassess your goals and values. Are your actions in alignment with what you believe in? Have you created a partnership that is not mutually beneficial? Separation, dissolution, and dispersion are all in focus now. If someone wishes to break away from you, don't chase the relationship out of a sense of fear. The price you'll pay will not be worth the prize. Separation brings good fortune. Doesn't get any more clear than that. So, have a great week, everyone. Take care. Bye.